This week we've been exploring the broadcast towers dotting the Capitol Wasteland. Each one powers its own unique radio signal that hasn't been heard for over 200 years. In today's video, we will track down the final two broadcast towers and the final two hidden radio signals. And we'll fully explore every point of interest and random encounter along the way. To find the next broadcast tower, we travel to Girdershade. We explored Girdershade and its two occupants in my video on the Nuka-Cola Challenge, which you can watch here. After clearing the area of nearby hostile fauna, we see a burnt-out shack on a hillside to the southeast. There's nothing in this shack, but it's a good point of reference for finding the broadcast tower. From here, we can head southwest down a hillside, destroy any robots in our way, and follow our compass northeast until we see two undiscovered locations appear on our compass. After clearing any nearby rad scorpions, we move northeast towards one of these locations until we see a shack off in the distance through our scope. Heading towards this shack, we see that it was a pre-war Red Rocket coolant refilling station. And off in the distance next to this station, we see one of the broadcast towers. This station is infested with rad scorpions. Heading down the hillside, we can clear the place. Underneath the coolant refilling canopy, we find one rusted-out wrecked Corvaga and the remains of a Lone Wanderer motorcycle, and to the east, we see the shack. On top of the shack is a big billboard with a Vault-Tec advertisement. It's never too late for a spot in your local vault shelter. Reserve one at your local vault shelter today. Nearby is a big blue sign pointing towards a scenic overlook. But before we explore that, let's check out what's inside this shack. After looting a Nuka-Cola machine just outside, we can move to the western side of the building to enter Jocko's Pop Stop. It's a tiny little shack on the inside, and it looks like it's already been looted. We don't find many goods. All of the wooden boxes are empty. We find boxes of Blamco mac and cheese and other food, and empty tin cans all over the place. Southeast behind the counter, however, we find a Nuka-Cola Quantum on a shelf and some Mentats. Here we find a workbench, and on top of the workbench are some schematics for the bottle cap mine. Since this is the third schematics for the bottle cap mine that I have found, my schematics have been improved to version 3. On the bottom shelf of the workbench, we find a bottle cap mine, and on the nearby countertop, we find a copy of Nikola Tesla and you. We can loot some cigarettes to give to Jericho, and some bottle caps right next to a cash register.
Yeah, kid. What do you need?
Let's go ahead and give these to Jericho.
Sure. Give me whatever you got.
I got some cigarettes for you, buddy. There you go, all done.
Yeah, let's get to the action.
Feel better now, Jericho? Maybe you'll stop complaining, eh? Alright. Heading out, we can walk over towards that scenic overlook. The overlook is just a big pile of rocks overlooking a small valley. We see the ruined freeway overpass that once connected to what is now Girdershade. It continues on to the southeast. And we see the broadcast tower perched on a rocky ledge across the valley. To get there, we skirt around the valley using the hillside and then drop down some rocks to walk up the hill to the broadcast tower. This is an unmarked location, so we don't know what this tower is called. But like all of the others, we can activate an electrical switch on a nearby pod. Upon doing so, our Pip-Boy picks up radio signal Sierra Victor. Like many of the others, this is in Morse code, and it has a similar message. Calling anyone, calling anyone, calling anyone. This is Sierra Victor, Sierra Victor, Sierra Victor, over. The signal gets stronger as we head to the southwest, and the entrance to the source of the signal is easy to see. We see a sewer grate even standing over here. To get over there, we walk across a big ruined tower, which has fallen over, acting as a bridge to the nearby plateau. Once across, we can head on over to open the sewer entrance to the drainage chamber. Once inside, we can creep south down the hallway until we see a pressure plate on the ground. After deactivating it, we can look into a western nook to see that it was attached to a nearby combat shotgun, but wait, there's another pressure plate. After disarming it, we see that it too was connected to a combat shotgun. This one was hiding in the shadows. Thankfully, we found both before it was too late. We can creep on over now and disarm the rigged shotguns. Continuing along, we see that our path forward is blocked. Someone has stacked up a bunch of gun cabinets right in the middle of this pathway. However, we do see a barrel, and it looks like we can push it away. Whoops!
That didn't even hurt.
The barrel itself was a trap. There was a fragmentation bouquet hanging inside of it, and upon disturbing it, we activated the trap. But now that the barrel is gone, we can hop over this tool chest, and we have two paths before us. We can go south down some stairs, or east down some stairs. While going south first, we can open a door at the end of this hallway to enter a chamber. Inside, one of the first things we see is a terminal, but this is a trap. The terminal is not functional. Instead, we can open up a rear panel to disarm the booby trap. When done, we can activate a ham radio on a nearby table to turn off Radio Signal Sierra Victor. To continue exploring this room, we move to the southeast. We find a store of goods on a shelf leaning against a pillar to the north. Here we see an assault rifle, 2 ammo boxes on a bottom shelf, a dose of jet on a middle shelf, and a stack of purified water. And to the east, we find a skeleton. This person appears to have fallen backwards in his chair. But did he die upon impact? We find 2 crutches lying to the southeast, and then inspecting the table more closely, we see 3 microfusion cells strung together with wire. They appear to be connected to a miniature blown-out generator, surrounded by a puddle of blood next to this blown-out terminal. And now we have a picture of what went on here. This man was either a cripple or had an injury, making it hard for him to walk, an injury possibly sustained after suffering accidents during his own experiments. He was a tinkerer. He loved traps and explosives. And before the bombs dropped, he put together this shelter for himself and moved in all of his supplies. After getting the warning on the day of the apocalypse, he hobbled on over to his shelter here and set up all of his traps. The pressure switch plates connected to the rigged shotguns, the fragmentation bouquets, and the frag mines. And then he retired to his workshop here to wait out the apocalypse. To pass the time, he began tinkering with some of his experiments, but this one failed. The miniature generator he was tinkering with exploded, causing fatal injuries to his face and chest. The explosion knocked him back in his chair, and he was dead by the time he hit the ground. This would explain all the blood we find on the table. On the other side of the cement pillar, we find a frag mine, and we see more of this guy's explosives on a table to the east. We can walk away with 2 more frag mines, a copy of Duck and Cover, and even a mini-nuke. On a workshop to the northeast, we find another bottle cap mine, and then 2 bundles of railway spikes at the top of a tool cabinet. The door to the west is the door that we saw previously down the second hallway, but we need to be careful moving forward as the entrance is booby-trapped with more frag mines. We can then follow this up back to the pile of tool cabinets we saw earlier, blocking the path. And with that, we completely explore this drainage chamber. Back outside, we can walk towards the next location when we run smack dab into a random encounter. After destroying a Mr. Gutsy that had been fighting a giant rad scorpion, we find a scavenger having an argument with a Mr. Handy.
House is gone. Please contact your local planning authority to construct a new residence.
Oh, hey there. Do you need something?
Something wrong with your robot?
I've been wondering about that for an hour now. I think it's stuck in some sort of loop. I tried fixing it, but all those switches and circuits are beyond me.
Well, I could try to fix it for you.
Thanks. If you get it working, I have a couple of energy cells you can have. Just come back to me when you're done.
We can get more money from this guy by passing a speech check to say, you know, that's a complicated job. I'm gonna need some money.
Well, I guess that's fair. I'll throw in 100 caps if you fix the robot, plus the 2 energy cells.
Ironically, even though he's asking us to repair his robot, he does function as a repair shop.
Sure, I can fix most anything. Let me see what you've got.
However, his skill is only 15. He's also a wandering merchant with a small inventory of scrap, chems, and even explosives.
There's nothing wrong with the outside of you. Something wrong with the inside, then?
We can then take a look at his Mr. Handy robot. We have 3 options. We can walk away and do nothing. We can completely disable the robot by removing critical circuits, or we can rewire the diagnostic system. If we want to get our reward, we can choose to rewire the diagnostic system. You reset the circuitry inside the robot and it should behave normally now.
Out of dog food for animal designation Fluffy. Please purchase more food to ensure optimal health. I'm sorry, that message should have gone out to you 7 days ago.
Let's check in with that scavenger.
Hey, what happened with the robot?
Your robot's working fine now.
Thanks. Nice to meet a fellow mechanic out here in the wasteland. Here's your payment.
And with that, he pays us 100 bottle caps and 2 energy cells. Well, I hope he and his pet Mr. Handy enjoy their adventure. To find the next broadcast tower, we need to head towards the vicinity of Vault 108. However, I have not explored this section of the Capital Wasteland very much, so the closest location I could fast travel to was the Regulator headquarters. Upon arriving, we find 2 sentry bots attacking the Regulator Brahmin.
It's been a long time since I killed someone. That didn't even hurt. You're gonna pay that.
Despite all of that, the Brahmin survived, although this one's almost dead. Anyway, when done, we can head inside the Regulator headquarters and give our fingers to Sonora Cruz. Then, after waiting until daybreak, we can walk off to the southeast. I added a marker on my map in the vicinity of the final broadcast tower, so we'll head towards this marker. This path, however, brings us to a rad scorpion nest.
I'm gonna bust your shit up, kid.
Heading over towards the nest, we see that the rad scorpions were devouring a wastelander. We didn't make it in time to save this person, but at least these rad scorpions won't hurt anyone else. Cresting a rocky hill, we arrive at the crossroads near to Canterbury Commons. And here we find 3 Deathclaws. Those last 2 had been attacking Brahmin, grazing in the fields nearby. I wonder if we managed to save any of them. Crouching down, I do get a message that there is an enemy nearby, but we don't see any. Heading down the road. Oh! A Deathclaw just appeared in the middle of the road. That was an interesting glitch. And it looks like we missed most of the battle. On the roadside, we find a Wastelander corpse right next to a destroyed sentry bot. This gang of Deathclaws had been wreaking havoc on this road. In the middle of the crossroads, we find a destroyed Enclave iBot, and then we see the body of one of the Deathclaws we killed. Heading to the northeast, we find 3 dead Brahmin. 1, 2, 3. And then the Deathclaw that we killed next to another Brahmin corpse. These Deathclaw nearly destroyed the herd. Thankfully, we see a few more grazing off to the north. But from here, we see the final broadcast tower off to the southeast, between the Regulator headquarters and Vault 108. Hopping over a fence and walking across the pasture, we eventually come to another crossroads. Heading east up the hill towards the Corvega factory, we see the broadcast tower loom to the south. Heading that way, we see it fenced off with a small wooden fence and some Brotherhood outcasts patrolling nearby. And when ready, we can flip the electrical switch. Since this is an unmarked location, we don't know the name of this broadcast tower, but upon flipping the switch, we pick up signal Yankee Bravo. However, upon listening to it, We don't hear Morse code. We have no idea why it's called Yankee Bravo, but instead we pick up heavy breathing. Oh no, this is not the first time we've picked up heavy breathing on one of these radios, and it almost always leads to ghouls. The signal gets stronger as we head south, but this hillside ends at a bunch of rocks overlooking the road. Checking out our local map, we see the entrance to a drainage chamber just to the southwest. Sure enough, climbing down from the rocks, we land on the ground right outside a big rusting grate to the drainage chamber. Inside, we can wade through ankle-deep green irradiated water towards the end of this tube. We see a big hole in the concrete wall leading to a cave to the north, and then a door to the south leading up some stairs. I thought I saw something moving up there, so turning off my light and creeping forward, sure enough, we find two ghouls, two glowing ones. Let's see if my metal blaster can do the trick. Ooh, probably should have used a Gatling laser for that. With the glowing ones dead, we can turn on our light and head to the south, where we find the ham radio. Activating it turns off signal Yankee Bravo. On the bottom shelf, we find a copy of Grognak the Barbarian next to 2 stim packs, and on the shelf above the radio, we find 1 carton of 32 caliber rounds. There are some sugar bombs on a bottom shelf, and mentats on the shelf above. We do see 1 skeleton here. So the 2 ghouls we killed were likely the survivors of the apocalypse who came here for shelter. They mutated into ghouls, but this guy died to the radiation instead of mutating. After looting some darts on a nearby shelf, we can loot some bottle caps from a locker to the east, and now it's time to check out that hole in the wall. We found the ghouls, but we never found a source of the radiation. Could exposure from the initial blast on October 23rd, 2077 have been enough to turn these guys into ghouls? Heading through the broken wall, we find ourselves in a cave. Making sure our light is off, we turn a corner to see 3 more glowing ones. Let's see if a sneak critical from my Gauss rifle can at least take 1 out. Oh, not even close. Gatling laser time. Well, I don't know if that was more effective than the metal blaster, but hey, we survived. Heading down into the cave, we see a number of construction lights still lit after all of these years, and at last we find an explanation for how these people turned into ghouls. In the southeastern corner of the cave, we find a huge pile of irradiated barrels. But it seems strange to me that so many people, 6 if we count all of the ghouls and the skeleton, would have still chosen to use this place as a bomb shelter, knowing that there were so many toxic irradiated barrels here. This, I think, tells us that just before the bombs dropped, some company or government entity used this cave for last-minute and illegal toxic waste disposal before the people who had turned it into a shelter could discover it. Then, on the day of the apocalypse, these 6 people raced to their drainage chamber, hoping to find safety, to wait out the apocalypse, only to discover their bunker just as radioactive as the Capital Wasteland. But they had nowhere else to go. They're out of time. This was their backup plan, and so they stayed until one by one they either died or turned into feral ghouls. And that is the full story of every single broadcast tower and radio signal in the Capital Wasteland. If you missed an episode, never fear. I organized all of these videos into a playlist, and I even included the radio signals we explored in my video on Chinese spies. So if you want to catch up, you can watch them all by checking out the playlist here. Thank you so much for watching. I publish a brand new video 6 days a week on a wide range of topics spanning all of the Fallout games. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I've been publishing shorter content than I usually do this week because I've been taking the time to capture footage for my upcoming DLC series. So stay tuned for that. I've got a new shirt in the shop, folks. End of Dungeon Steamer Trunk. The shirt comes in a variety of colors and a wide array of sizes, and I have a wide selection of other designs that you can get on shirts, mugs, and a bunch of other stuff. You can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. As many young parents know, it's difficult to find babysitters these days, but we found one for today. So I'm going to be celebrating Valentine's Day with the wife today instead of on Wednesday, which means that I'm not going to have time to work on a video today, which means no video tomorrow. So only 5 videos this week instead of 6. But never fear, we'll be back Tuesday morning with, hopefully, the start of a brand new epic DLC series. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook to keep up to date with all Oxhorn news. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.
You're going down.